With the first pick, with the second pick, with the third pick, with the fourth pick,
crashing the boards.
select.
Hello and welcome to Crashing the Boards, episode 3 already, Jordan. It's hard to believe, but we are on episode 3 and so excited to discuss 3 more prospects with you. Today we're going to talk about Baylor's Davion Mitchell, Arizona State's Josh Christopher, and Jalen Green of G League Ignite. Before we start, Jordan, I decided to wear a blue hat backward today just so we could match a little bit more. But what do you think? How do I look?
I appreciate the coordination, dude. It looks good. I think that next time we'll have to coordinate shirts and everything too. And then I think we'll be rolling. But this is a good start for sure.
Absolutely. How are things going?
Good, man. Just school and tape and
Yeah.
football, basketball, baseball, and trying to get into soccer and then NASCAR and golf and just sports. I mean, that's just the lifestyle, you know.
The dude's all over people. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you have to. You see it at the bottom of the screen. But at Foote noted, man, this guy with an E. But if you like just sports in general, Jordan is the guy to follow. If you like following people that don't tweet a whole lot and will just tweet some opinions here and there, follow me. You see that at the bottom of the screen too. Jordan, we've had a couple great episodes. We've talked about some great players, and today, no different. Some interesting guys, and we're going to kick it off with Davion Mitchell, 6'2", 205-pound combo guard. Peep the graphic for what that means. 14 points, 5.5 assists, 2.6 rebounds, 51% from the field, 44% from three, 64% from the free throw line, and 2.4 turnovers to go with those 5.5 assists. Jordan, I'm going to have you kick it off. Tell me your initial thoughts on Davion Mitchell.
I think it starts on the defensive end for him. I mean, he's just all over the place. He has quick feet, relentless effort as a defender, physical. He's a smothering defender when he wants to be. He can really press and get up in, make other players uncomfortable. Active hands. He navigates through screens really well, which he's not really an imposing guy physically, which is something that I thought stood out on tape. He does a really good job working around screens. He's switchable 1 through 3 pretty easily. It's not like a Drew Holiday situation where he could switch onto a Jimmy Butler or LeBron, but he could at least try it. And then his help defense is good on the weak side, and he rotates. So I think that defensively, that's the number one thing that stands out. And then offensively, he's much improved over his freshman and sophomore or freshman and junior seasons. His shooting numbers are up quite a bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a second. He has a pretty good first step. He has a decent handle. He attacks the rim aggressively from both sides. Shown flashes of shot creation, I think, in creating space and separating, and he's a capable player who can set the table when needed. So there's a lot to like about him, but definitely I think the defense is going to be the major selling point for him.
Yeah, and my first note is just the athleticism, right? He's a super athletic player. He offensively can get to the basket in a hurry, right? Like he is, like you said, he's got a great first step, and that does aid him on the defensive end, right? He's only 6'2", so like you said, 1 through 3, probably not going to switch onto a big wing. But I really like him. We didn't mention it, but he averaged 1.9 steals, throughout the season, which is a decent number. Like you said, plays the passing lanes well, kind of deceivingly quick. Well, it shouldn't be deceiving because he's got a great frame as well, but he can cover a lot of ground in a really little amount of time. So really like him on the offensive end and the defensive end. Jordan, if you look at mock drafts or just kind of feel the pulse of draft Twitter, there isn't a real consensus about where Davion Mitchell should go. There's some people that think high lottery, some people that think low lottery, some people just aren't high on him at all. What do you think is a contributing factor to that?
I think that the 1-year breakout is definitely something that people are worried about, and that's one of my question marks for him. Was it kind of a mirage? Is it a legitimate breakout? He's a poor free throw shooter so far, which is something that kind of can, if guys struggle to shoot, but they're good at the free throw line, that shows that they maybe have room to grow in the future. But the inverse, I guess, can also be true. And you don't really see that very often. A guy that shot, what, almost 45% from deep last season, which is insane, 64 at the line. So that is interesting, kind of a late bloomer. In 2019, he shot 32% from deep, and then his assist to turnover ratio was 3.8 to 2.2, which isn't anything special, but still somewhat respectable. He brought up those assists, which was nice. So teams that draft him will be kind of banking on that limited sample size, and I think that that's really what contributes to his draft stock as a whole.
Yeah, it is interesting when a guy's shooting 64% from the free throw line. You kind of think, well, maybe it had more to do with his focus, or maybe something was off. It was a weird season, right? But all 3 years that he's played, it's been right around the 60 to 65% mark. So you can't really attribute it to anything other than he's just a poor free throw shooter at this point, right? And people can improve. I mean, maybe that's not a part of his game that he really focuses on. But you're right. When you jump from 32% to 44% from the 3-point line in one season, that is alarming, right? That's great. It's awesome, but it's alarming. It is, is it real? And we don't get to see him another year at college to find out. You just got to pick him and hope that it's real. But I like Davion. I mean, even if let's say he's only a 33 or 35% 3-point shooter in the NBA, that's okay, because he is a super quick player. He can get to the basket. He's a strong guy too, right? He's not afraid of contact at the rim, which, a lot of the things we say on this show are sound repetitive for each guy, but there are certain things that make an NBA basketball player. And one of them is definitely being strong around the rim and being able to absorb contact, because it's a physical league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the improvements he showed, combined with the athleticism, combined with the defense, there's a really clear floor with him. And that's a reliable player, whether that's a sixth man or just a guy that comes off the bench and does stuff for you, or a guy that can start. And I saw someone bring up Marcus Smart in terms of defense. I mean, Smart's one of the top 10-ish defenders in the NBA. You can probably go plus or minus there, probably plus for me a little bit. But the offensive game for Davion is ahead of where Marcus Smart was at that age. And Marcus Smart took a while to put that stuff together. But then defensively, probably you're trading off a little bit. So there's evidence of guys who are a little bit smaller. Smart is bigger than him. So that also kind of makes the comp a frayed one. But he has a chance to go in and do specific things very well. And if you play defense and you act with good energy and you attack the basket and you can create a little bit of your own shot, you can set the table when needed. There's a definite value in that. And I think that the rest of it for him, my second question mark is, can he run an offense? A lot of draft sites have him listed as a point guard, and I had no clue. Like, I see him as more of a shooting guard, but that's why we throw out the combo kind of designation for him. Limited pick and roll operator. We didn't see a ton of that. And when we did, he kind of played too fast at times, I think, made some inaccurate reads. So he can put touch on the ball, he can put velocity on it, but it just varies. So then in the NBA, it's a double-edged sword. Like, you need reps to improve, but then you're probably risking some flow of the offense when you give him the ball. So that's something that teams will have to also take into account.
Yeah, those are both of my question marks as well, man. I'm with you 100%. It's, we talked about the stats at the top: 5.5 assists, 2.4 turnovers. We're rolling some clips right now of his passing ability. There's nothing terribly flashy, but I guess the fact to me that he can create space, that he has really elite handles. We haven't really mentioned that, but he's a fantastic dribbler. And he's got the athleticism to create some space, to put some pressure on defenses. You think he could probably develop into at least a formidable passer, right? Someone that can distribute, can facilitate. But that's why we call it a question mark, not a negative, not a minus. If you've been watching this show for all 3 episodes now, we're pretty positive guys. Like, Jordan, we want every one of these guys to succeed. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying he can't run an offense, and you're not saying that either. I know you're not. It's just a matter of can they? It's a question mark. And in this case, I think he's got the tools to do that. It's just, can he develop into that?
Yeah.
So how about a summary of Davion Mitchell?
I think my summary, he's a combo guard with NBA ready defensive abilities, and an offensive game that's still kind of a work in progress, but already much improved from years past.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would tack on at the end the athleticism to potentially build into or become an offensive threat.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's good for Mitchell. We'll move on to Josh Christopher, Arizona State, 6'5", 215-pound shooting guard, 14.27 points per game, 4.7 rebounds, 1.4 assists to go along with 1.7 turnovers, 1.4 steals, 43% from the field, 30% from beyond the arc. Josh Christopher is an interesting player, Jordan. 15 games last year at Arizona State. That's all we got to see him in. COVID protocols, injury, whatever it may be. He wasn't able to give us a full sample size. Now, he was a consensus 5-star recruit out of school. Depending on the board you looked at, like the number 2 shooting guard in that class. So tell me a little bit about what you think about Josh Christopher in that small sample size that we got to see.
I think that he showed why he was a top 15 recruit. There were flashes of brilliance. He showed the ability to, like, he has the size and the athleticism to be a really productive player in the NBA. He has the NBA ready frame, decent wingspan. I believe it's 6'9". Explosive player, huge transition threat. He takes long strides. He can get out and go. Switchable and physical defender when he's locked in, which is something I like. And he can kind of grow into being a strong plus defender in time. The ceiling with him is what I think will carry him through the draft process. He has every tool in the box, but it seemed like sometimes he was just kind of looking through the toolbox and couldn't pull that specific tool out in time. I was trying to think of an analogy, and that's the closest thing I could get.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to roll some clips right now of his transition buckets. So his transition game is what really makes me believe that he's got all the tools to be a really, really good offensive player. All right. So in the half court, for some reason, I don't know what it is, he doesn't necessarily have a bunch of wiggle. He doesn't have the quickest first step. He shows spurts of being able to create space, to get a shot in the mid range. He knocked down threes inconsistently, right? 30% from beyond the arc. But you're watching these clips right now, and he's got a lot of athleticism. He's got a great feel around the basket. He's not afraid to attack. He'll go around just about any defender. So I think he's the kind of guy that if you can get him the ball while he's moving, whether it's pin downs or off ball screens or just regular cuts, he's going to be really, really good for you. It's the isolation stuff that maybe he's got some work to do in. Maybe he's got to figure out a little bit about how to navigate a high level defense. But again, he's incredibly athletic. I mean, he knows the game. He's got the tools. It's just a matter of unlocking those tools.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned the pin downs and stuff like that. If he gets some catch and shoot opportunities, hopefully his 3-point percentage would go up. And you look at his jump shot, there's nothing terribly wrong with it from what I could tell. I'm far from a shot doctor, lethal shooter, or anything like that, but he shows flashes. And like there were some games where they were falling. He took almost 4 of those per game. So I think there's something there. He had 1.5 steals per game. So the first question mark for me is when will everything click? And the 3 balls spotty. His scoring habits are inconsistent. He had some really impressive mid-range jumpers where he created space and then made them. But then he also had some where he couldn't. He gets tunnel vision every once in a while. So I think that he's a high energy player who kind of plays at that breakneck speed. If you can channel that a little bit into him playing maybe more off the ball or in transition, he has some clear strengths where If there's more to his game, which I think there is, I think we both agree. If so, when will that happen and how will that manifest itself? So he's kind of touted for potential more so than substance thus far, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because the substance consists of things that are valuable to NBA teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned the tunnel vision. I think that is kind of a part of what his issue in the half court is, and
Mhm.
it's that he's not a dangerous passer, right? He'll force bad shots, and he doesn't necessarily find the outlet of the pressure inside. And so, I mean, what that means for a guy is that you, there's not going to be any space for you because no one's worried about you passing the ball out. Everyone's going to focus on you, and that makes it tough. So one of my question marks is, can you be a passer? Can you learn how to pass? He only had 1.4 assists per game, and even those assists were not necessarily him creating. It was him finding an open shooter that, and maybe the flow of the offense, or maybe just in transition. But if he can develop that passing, perhaps the floor spaces out for him a little bit, and he can use that burst and that elite finishing ability at the rim to be effective in the half court as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And that was my second question mark. Can he create enough in the half court? Like in transition, I'm not really worried about that because he can do enough for himself. And those passes are a lot easier to make usually, especially at the pace he plays with. That's not going to be a problem for him making those split second decisions. But in the half court, when they're still split second decisions, but they're almost even quicker, in that you have to have the mental processing to be almost one step ahead of what's going on. He just doesn't see the floor particularly well right now, which isn't a huge problem. But in order to be trusted ever as a primary ball handler of any sort, even a go-to scoring threat, he's going to have to add that to his arsenal.
I'm with you 100%. So, Jordan, give me your summary on Arizona State's Josh Christopher.
Toolsy shooting guard with good size and athleticism, needs some seasoning, but offers impressive potential as a defender and scoring threat.
Yeah, and I feel bad because I'm about to go right back and say we forgot to mention he's got a really big wingspan too. You may have said that
Yes.
actually already, but 6'9" wingspan definitely helps that defensive potential. If he gets picked, safe pick uh,
Mhm.
because of his defensive ability. Right, he's not going to kill you on offense as long as he doesn't demand the ball, right? As long as he's good with deferring a little bit and can just help you on defense at first as they kind of develop that offensive game.
Yeah. Some I've seen sites originally, like towards the end of the season, he was like a top 15 projected pick. Now some sites have him outside their top 20. Now some sites have him outside their top 25. Like it's one of those iffy things. So for me, like, because I do a projected draft range in my notes, and I put 20 plus or minus 5. Like he
Okay.
could go like 15, 16. I wouldn't be surprised, but also he could slip to like 23, 24. And I think that one probably makes a little bit more sense considering the sample size and how he ended the season. But given the potential, I mean, we both see it that if it clicks, he's going to be worth that pick, even a lottery guy. So I think he's still hanging on to that first round value. And some team's going to be satisfied with it. It's just a matter of how they use him and how they unlock that second level he has.
Yep, and the other benefit we don't get is pre-draft workouts.
Yeah.
You and I don't get to see those, right? We need to have the Woj contacts in order to understand how these guys are performing in that matter, and that's a good chance for those guys to see, for front offices to see a little more than 15
Mm-hmm.
games worth of tape. So I'm definitely rooting for him, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm
Yeah.
a Josh Christopher fan. So we'll move on to our last guy. And this guy could, if you're talking about draft range, according to some people, he could go 1 or he could go 5. I don't see him falling below 5. We'll see what happens, but he's Jalen Green. Played his first professional season for G League Ignite, skipped college completely. 6'5", 170-pound shooting guard, averaged 17.93 points, 4.07 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 2.6 turnovers, 46% from the field, 36% from three on 5.6 attempts. Maybe one of the rawest offensive talents, definitely in this draft, but maybe in the last few.
Yeah, definitely, dude. And the scoring profile and the scoring ability is easily the first thing that jumps off the page. He's an aggressive attacker. He's a transition threat. He showed a little bit that he can produce off the ball and get open, and he can cut to the rim. He can hit pull ups off screens. He has the ISO bag. I mean, he has the snatchbacks, the crossovers into pull up jumpers off the dribble. He can create there a true 3 level scorer, and that's not really something that a lot of guys at his size, not meaning height, but in terms of frame, are comfortable doing. He's completely comfortable doing it and creating his own shot. He's patient in the pick and roll, makes reads there, can trap defenders in jail on his back hip. His pacing is good. He's a good athlete, a really good athlete. Top end speed is crazy. The first step is great. He accelerates quickly. He hangs in the air forever. And I know you're going to talk about that more here in a second. He moves well in space. The quickness and length, I think, will help him on defense once he kind of figures the rest of it out. And we'll talk about that as well. But man, there's a lot to like about him offensively. And he just has so much talent. So much of it is advanced already that he's worth that top 5 pick, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned 3-level scorer, and that's a term that's widely used, usually correctly. Definitely in this case, but I want to point out that there's a difference between being a 3-level scorer and a 3-level creator.
Yes.
And Jalen can create his own shot, not just hit it, but create
Mhm.
his own shot at all 3 levels because of that athleticism. Now he's got, so I know our guy Simon Rath. All right, we both follow him, interact with him often. Um, I'll get his Twitter. You get his Twitter handle while I talk, if
It's
you don't
at
mind.
Hawks Draft Nerd.
There we go. I wanted to make sure I
Really
got
good
that right.
follow. Simon's a
Great,
cool dude.
great follow, great guy. Simon's really high on Jalen Green, and I don't blame him for that. Simon was the first one I saw to point out Jalen Green's gait, his strides. Jalen Green is an incredibly fast player, foot speed wise, like straight line speed. Okay, so that helps him in transition, but those strides and those strong legs help him be able to create that space. He has a great step back, quick step back, but a long step back. He's not James Harden yet, but you think of that ability, just that ability to create space with a crafty step back, a quick step back. He's got that. He uses those strides to step around defenders, whether he's going at a really high speed in transition or just an advanced gather at the rim. He can just it's 2 steps and you're dumbfounded as a defender. Like, where did this guy go without dribbling? Like, how is that even possible that he covered that much ground without having to take a dribble? Like, his advanced gathers are uh they're elite, dude. I mean, his
Yeah.
offensive game, I could sit here and write notes and talk about it for hours. Just the way he could play on offense. Um, and look, my process is always to watch tape before I look at any stats. Sometimes it's unavoidable because ESPN or whoever you're watching will flash it up, but I try really hard to watch tape without any context. Like, just want to understand who the guy is. His shot, especially from beyond the arc, like, it is the prettiest ball trajectory that I've ever seen. Like, it's a nice high arc. It almost never hits the rim, just falls straight through. And so when I looked at his stats and saw 36% from beyond the arc, I was kind of like, it felt low. 36
Yeah, like
shouldn't,
that's it. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
36 shouldn't be low for a guy. Now, you got to understand too, the jump from high school to an NBA 3-point line is a big jump.
Mhm.
And he still hit 36%, which is great. But I think he's got the potential to be an all-time great shooter. And that's not, I mean,
Not hyperbole.
maybe you can call it a hot take, but like, I truly believe just the way he can create the space, the way he can drive is going to cause some defenders to not close out as quickly, I think. I really do think he's going to end up being one of the best. Okay. I got to be really careful. I try. This isn't a hot take show, but like, I really think he is a phenomenal scorer and can be in this league for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely, 110%. And you mentioned in your notes, he's always in the air and he's crafty around the rim. He literally flies. Like the jump shot is beautiful, and watching him attack the rim is. And one of the things that I listed as question marks, which is really a formality at this point, it's going to happen, but I still had to list it. Can he get stronger? Because, dude, if he adds some weight and finishes even more with that left hand, there are some reps where he avoids contact maybe a little bit. And I think that adding strength will help him avoid that. He'll get to the free throw line more where he shoots 83%. He'll become a better defender. He can switch on to longer players. He's 6'6", so he'll be able to do that. Navigate screens easier. But, dude, offensively, that is the key to making him like borderline unstoppable, because he already attacks the rim really hard and hangs in the air for a very long time. If he can do that and finish through contact better and finish with his left hand better, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. So let's get to question marks. Okay. And I'm going to preface this by saying this is not an original thought. I saw Kevin O'Connor tweet, or maybe right, that Jalen Green, a comparison for Jalen Green is Zach LaVine. Okay. And one question mark that is pretty easy to write is his defensive ability. And when I watch, I see a guy that's not necessarily engaged defensively. He's got all the athletic tools to be a good defender, but he's not necessarily engaged. So I'll let you talk about his defense first, but I want people to understand, like, I think he can play defense, but Zach LaVine could play defense if he wanted to, and it took him a long time. I mean, he's been a pretty decent defender this year, but it took him a long time to really get to that end of the ball. So what do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I'm gonna combine defense and facilitating with Zach
Yeah.
LaVine because it's a perfect example of that. When Jalen's locked in one-on-one, he can be a pretty decent individual defender. Like you said, he shuffles his feet well. He has the height to make some shots difficult for smaller guards. Like the tools are there for him to be a good defender. He has the 6'11" wingspan, which is absolutely insane. So he has the long arms that can play in the passing lanes and stuff like that. But it seems like there were some examples of him rotating well and processing quickly, but like you said, the engagement just wasn't necessarily there. I think the tools are all there for him to be a good defender, but it's just a matter of him actually going out and doing it. And then as a facilitator, he showed improvement in the bubble compared to high school. He still has a very long way to go. Like he can make the basic reads, but doesn't still see the floor extremely well. He's going to be known as more of a scorer earlier in his career, but there were still, he made some flashy dump off passes. He made some skip passes that were nice. He shows flashes of both of those. And if you're waiting on the light to turn on full time and it flickers, like there were some defensive possessions where the light flickered, as well as him passing. The offensive game's already so extensive and expanded and mature scoring wise that the rest of it's worth waiting on. I mean, the cookies are in the oven. The first batch is out. The batch is absolutely fantastic. You've ate all of them. You're just waiting for that second batch to come out of the oven.
Man, I'm with you 100%. I can't wait to see him on an NBA floor.
Yeah.
And pass it, like, okay, so he's probably not going to be a triple double guy in his career. Probably not a double double guy, but he averaged 4.07 rebounds, right? And you mentioned the wingspan. So you talk about a 6'11" wingspan with a guy that can jump. Like he'll probably help you get rebounds.
Yeah.
Right? Even if he can average 4 rebounds a game in his NBA career, like that's pretty good. I could see it even getting bigger if he gets stronger, if he's able to kind of handle some of the banging to get those rebounds. And I think from what I hear, like, look, I don't have a ton of sources. I'm not Woj. I'm not like whatever. But from
So
what I
listen up,
hear,
people. Sources say.
yeah, from what I hear, he's a good kid. Like
Mhm.
he wants to be good, and he's a coachable guy. So if you need a guy that can go out and get 7 to 8 rebounds a game, and you tell him like, look, this is what we need your role to be: 17 points a game, 20 points a game, 25 points a game, and 7 rebounds. He'll go get it for you, I think. But the assist numbers, like, look, we're not going to expect him to be a huge facilitator. If he can develop that, look out. I mean, that's it's game over from there. We're talking about Hall of Fame potential there. And yes, hot take alert, whatever. But like, look, he's going to be a great player. He's going to help you in multiple ways. I hope he can get his defense sorted out. But whether or not he can, it doesn't mean he's not going to be a fun player to watch. He's going to be really, really fun. So Jordan, again, I keep asking you to summarize because I think your summaries are always well written and well said. So let's hear it.
Shooting guard with scoring chops that will instantly translate to the NBA level while the rest of his game develops close behind.
Bingo. Awesome, man. That's Jalen Green. That's Davion Mitchell. That's Josh Christopher. And that's episode 3 of Crashing the Boards. Jordan, as I always ask, let's hear your final thoughts.
Man, I'm just excited. I mean, and we pick out these players because we like them. We talk about prospects via text and before we go on and stuff like that. And it's never like, oh well, I don't really care for this prospect or this guy lacks this. Even if they lack this or it's a question mark, it's still worth talking about. Every prospect in this draft is a prospect in this draft for a reason. Like they have elite scoring potential, they're smart, they're good passers, they have size, they have athleticism, they have the whole package. They have Jalen Green where do everything you want in a scoring threat, but still kind of developing some other stuff. So it's all fun. And I'm excited for the guys we're going to talk about next week. And then we also have a few planned for the week after that.
Yes, sir. And I do before we get out of here, want to go back to what I guess I touched on earlier in the show. Like we want every one of these guys pick 1 through 60 to turn out to be awesome. Like Jordan and I want to sit down and watch a random Kings Hornets game or Kings, I don't know, Cavs game. And I keep saying Kings like they suck. That's too bad. I feel badly for saying it, but you get what we're saying. Like we want some of these teams that stink to draft guys that are awesome, and we want to watch one of those random games and be entertained. So it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, we might have some negatives or some question marks. We might not like a certain aspect of a guy's game. That doesn't mean we don't want to be wrong. Right. Like I would love for every one of these guys to prove me wrong on every negative I've ever said about them. That's what I want. Like I love basketball. I love these guys. I cannot wait to see them at the next level. I can't wait, Jordan.
Yeah. And I think that instead of calling them negatives and referring to them as question marks, it's almost harder to point out the things that are negatives, but also spin them into positives and say, not only is this something that needs to be developed, but here's how they can do it. Because that's a twofold thing. It's Josh Christopher lacks half court versatility, I guess, as a scorer. Here's how he can do it. He can become a better facilitator, stuff like that. So it's always fun watching these guys and doing those reports. And I never come away from watching a kid and saying, well, kid as if I'm not 22, but whatever. Watching a player and saying, I don't know about that. There's always a clear set of stuff to take away from it.
Absolutely. Well, Jordan, thank you again for joining me. Had a great time. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to like, rate, review. You know how it goes. Share it with your friends. Share it with your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandma's neighbor, whoever it is. We appreciate you all so much. And you can catch us on Twitter. We're always down to talk. We're always having conversations with each other, with other people. You can see it right at the bottom of the screen. Jordan is at Foote Noted. I'm at Evan R. Skilliter. And you can find our show on Instagram at the Crashing the Board Show. And tune in next week. You see us right back here as we break down Florida's Trey Mann, Illinois, Io DeSunmo, and UC Santa Barbara's Ja'Cory McLaughlin, one of my favorite players, one of the nicest guys, and a great dad as well, by the way. I enjoy Jay on Twitter, as always. So, again, see us back here next week, and we'll talk to you then. Stay right, stay real. God bless.
With the first pick, with the second pick, with the third pick, with the fourth pick,
Crashing the Boards.
select.